Hi, this is Ingrid from Quiltessential Co in St. Albert, and this is our introduction to our block of the month for 2021. And this year we're going to be virtually traveling because we can't travel anywhere, so we may as well have fun with each other. So we've got 3 different colorways. We've got Brighton Beach, that happens to be sitting right here, and we're doing the Cayman Islands, which is all in batiks, and Florida Keys, which is black and coral and a lovely gold. When you're doing this, these are the tips and the tricks that you need to think about every month. So your ruler comes with instructions. Please don't throw these instructions out. Every time that you get your instructions from us about how to cut out your block and how to sew it, I want you to get these out as well. And then that way it'll be really easy for you to follow along because we'll refer to the steps in the ruler instructions. Never pre-wash your fabrics. You're going to have a little package of fabrics every month, just enough to cut out your block. If you pre-wash those fabrics, they're going to fray and shrink up and you won't have enough fabric. They're all excellent quality, so you don't need to worry about washing them ahead of time. I also want you to make sure that you're sewing with optimum capacity. I want you to do a really good job. So make sure that you have a new number 10 or 12, if that's your preference, sewing machine needle. You can use a universal, or you could use a Microtex or a jeans needle, just something nice and sharp. After 8 hours of sewing, there is no tip on the end of your needle. So you want to make sure that you get rid of that needle and put a new one in. So if you've just sewn up a quilt and you're going to do your block of the month, think about a new needle. You want to sew with an accurate 1/4 inch seam. The best way to test this is get 2 pieces of fabric. They're both 2 inches, and you want to put them together and sew them with a 1/4 inch seam. You're doing several things while you do this. You can check your thread tension while you're doing this, making sure that's good. And when you press these open, they should equal 3.5 inches. If when you press it open it's not 3.5 inches, then check your 1/4 inch foot. Is it the right foot? Are you sewing accurately with that? If you just take the time to do this, it'll check your tension and check your 1/4 inch right at the beginning. So that's a good thing to do. Sometimes when we're sewing, our fabric gets stuck into our feed dogs, and that's really annoying, especially when we're doing little triangles or something and it gets stuck in there. So if you sew with 2.5 inch pieces or something like that to start with, just sew on this. This is your beginning scrap, and at the end have another one for your tail. It'll stop the fabric dragging into your feed dogs, and then you can always use them for little projects like 9 patches or something like that. I often buy the 2.5 inch little mini charms and sew those together and make those into a project while I'm working on my blocks. We are going to be using this ruler. It is the kitty corded ruler by Creative Grids, and it makes 2 blocks at once, and each one of those blocks could be a various different sizes. So it can make from a finished 1 inch all the way up to a 6 inch, and everything is on the ruler. The math is all on the ruler, and it's really nice to use, and it's got lots of fudge factor. So if you don't actually sew super accurately, we can fix that later. So the kitty cornered ruler is the one we're using for the block of the month. And as the last couple of years, we will also be using the folded corner clipper. And if you don't have this ruler, you can do a traditional method. I will also show you how to do traditional methods every month. But if you do have this ruler, pull it out because it's a great one for our block of the month, and we use it frequently. Our blocks are all going to be 9.5 inches when they're finished. So if you happen to have a 9.5 inch ruler, that's handy. If you don't, it's okay. You can use one that's bigger. You can't square up a block well with something that's smaller. So make sure you have a 9.5 or bigger square ruler. You always want to make sure that you are working with a sharp rotary cutter. If your cutter is dull and you're trying to trim up your block, you're going to end up with lots of little pieces that get kind of chewed up, and it won't be a nice, neat block. So you want it to be neat. So make sure that that's nice and sharp. Um, when we're cutting, always make sure with any ruler that you're using, it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, when you hold the ruler, you want to make sure your pinky is right on the edge of that ruler. And when it is, and you push with your rotary cutter and you're cutting along, it will make sure that the ruler does not move to the side because your little pinky finger is holding the ruler out of the way. So it makes a nice clean cut and it won't slip on it. So now we've kind of got a little bit of a close-up here because I'm talking about the pressing, which is really quite important. If you do happen to have a wool mat, they really do make a difference to your pressing, and best press starch makes a big difference too. So typically the little pieces of fabric that come in your kit, I would give them a little bit of a best press and then give them a spray, and you'll see how nicely that just irons out everything. And the wool mat really does make everything go super, super flat. So right away, that's a really nice piece. It's got a little bit more body to it, so it's nice to work with. We're going to be doing a lot of triangles, and they have bias edges. And when they have bias edges, they tend to stretch out. So if you can just give it a little spritz with best press before you cut, and press always on your wool mat, you'd be amazed at how nice and flat your blocks will be. Always press in the direction that I tell you in the instructions. Sometimes I'll say press to A or press to B, press seams open. If you press seams open, you're going to be doing it from the back of your fabric, but any other pressing, do it from the front. If you have a seam and I've said press it to A, lift A, and then just knock that seam over, and it will make the nicest, flattest block. So every month you get fabrics in the bag. So here they are, and this is what you're going to be getting all the time. But every month, these fabrics are named. They're not always in the same position in your block, but they're always named the same. So for example, with Brighton Beach, there's Pavilion, there's Pebbles, there's Beach Hut. They all have names. If you go to our website under Block of the Month, it will be all there. So each one of the colorways has their own little package where it shows what the names are and what the fabrics look like. I make myself a cheat sheet. So I put them all down here with a tiny little piece of the fabric. I put the name beside it. So every month I keep this with all of my Block of the Month supplies. I get it out. When I open up my package, I go, oh, I know what that is. I've got my cheat sheet. Here it is. It's lanes. And let's pretend this month it's going to be A. I've made myself little cards that say A, B, C, D, E, F. And so I'll put A on this one. I'll look and see what this one is called. This one's channels. Maybe this time it's going to be B. So I put my B with it so that I know every month where I'm going to be putting those in my block and how to cut them. My instructions will tell me what to do with A, B, and C. And they'll also tell me what color A is and what color B is, etc. So keep that all together. You may want to think about a boo-boo bundle. This is what we affectionately call these. And there's one of each of the fabrics in your little Block of the Month. And so if you accidentally miscut, if we've accidentally made a mistake, because nobody's perfect, that you're a little bit short of something one month, you can go to your boo-boo bundle and make some. At the end of the year, I always design blocks to go into the quilt that maybe you just need one more block for. You need 13 or maybe 16, or maybe you need corner posts. So you can use your boo-boo bundle for that. Make sure you order that in January because we only have enough fabric to do X amount, so we don't have them available all year long. So that's your boo-boo bundle. I would also suggest most of the colors this time, piece them with a medium gray thread because that will match any of the colors that you're working on this year and you'll get a good result with your thread. And partway through the year, you might think, oh, my blocks aren't the right size. Please don't square up until that you kind of realize what size your blocks are. We're aiming for 9.5. If your blocks consistently come out at 9.25, don't worry about it. I design things that will fudge it at the end. It's not a big deal. So make sure that you're not trimming too much off until you know that you're in the swing of it. So I don't suggest anyone trim up their blocks till after March, so you know what you're up to and you get yourself a consistent size. If your January block is the only small one out of the year, you can always make one if you have a boo-boo bundle, right? So just keep yourself all together. Some people might also find a friction pen handy because you might want to mark something, and so this will iron off. So if you're marking something and you need a line on it, use a friction pen because you can iron that line right off and you don't have to worry about it. And the last thing that I want to remind you is if you're working with batiks, it's hard to tell which is the right side or the wrong side. So always test, but if you do a friction pen line on one side of your fabric, you will always know that that's your wrong side when you're cutting out. It will iron off later, but it's nice to work with knowing what's the wrong side for your blocks. So there's all these tips and tricks on a sheet that you'll be getting, but I just wanted to tell them to you personally, and I hope you have a really good time and have fun with your blocks this year.